Hi everyone, welcome back to Demand Decoded, and we're live on LinkedIn again, which is actually great to be live on LinkedIn. It feels like this is where everything started when we first, started doing Demand Decoded, and we're back on LinkedIn again, which is great. And I'm joined today by Samantha North, who is an AI workflow architect and founder of Emigre Systems. And what's really interesting about having Amanda on the podcast is because if you've kind of watched the AI conversation unfold recently, you've probably seen a lot of chat about what's possible and the perhaps maybe things that you could do with AI in the future. But not many people are actually showing you exactly how to connect your content workflows up and how you can integrate these tools together to have better, faster output. And that's exactly what we're going to go into today with Samantha. We're going to be talking about the opportunity right now for AI content workflows, how to actually get started. And Samantha's going to share some really cool things she's been working on and show you live demos basically of how to connect all this stuff up. Great to have you here, Samantha. I think you've got some really, really interesting thoughts and practical insights around all of this.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for inviting me on. I've been looking forward to this for a couple of weeks now since we first chatted. And yeah, I've been, fascinated by these workflows for, the last 6 months or so, building them every day, transforming my other business with them. And I just think there's so much there's so much power in there and so much that they can open up for businesses. So yeah, I'm excited to jump in and share some of those today.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, we had a really good chat actually, because I initially saw you on LinkedIn actually. I saw some of your posts on LinkedIn, your make.com screenshots basically of the content workflows themselves. And I was like, wow, like you'd be such a cool person to have on to actually show how to do a lot of this stuff, because your LinkedIn post and your content was telling and, showing some aspects of it. But I was thinking, a live demo of this would be useful for a lot of people, because there's just a lot of talk right now around what is possible with AI and the things that you could potentially use it for. And I think you're one of the few people that are actually showing people how it's being done. How did you actually come around to all of this AI workflow implementation work you've been doing?
Yeah, great question. It was a bit of a winding journey, really. So, in 2017, I started a PhD in social data science, and that was like a very, not exactly workflows or anything like that, but it still kind of opened up this world of working with data and working with machine learning and, talk of AI and all of this stuff. And I finally finished that in 2023. It took me a long, long time because I kept doing other stuff alongside it. And I knew at that point that I didn't want to stay in academia. It was not for me. I wanted to get more into entrepreneurship. And I also had this other company called Digital Emigre, which was helping people relocate to Europe, particularly Portugal, other EU countries. And when I first started that in 2020, it was so messy and there were so many manual tasks. And I struggled through this, for several years, not knowing anything really about the world of automation. And it was only really in 2024 that I stumbled across some things on YouTube. There's this guy, Liam Otley, who has a really awesome YouTube channel. Also Nick Sarive. So shout out to those two guys because they really helped me a lot. And they just opened up this whole new world of being able to stick all these moving pieces together, put some AI intelligence in there and, transform your business. And it was just really addictive to me. I came from an SEO background as well. So alongside my PhD, I was also, helping businesses with SEO. And that was, fun and exciting at first. But with all the changes with Google and all of that, it became, like trudging through a swamp to try and keep selling SEO because it's just so unpredictable. And, that there are too many moving pieces in there and the results are very slow in many cases. So I was getting a bit disillusioned with that. And I was looking really for some angle to jump into the AI world kind of wholeheartedly. And this seemed like the perfect thing to do. And I really love it. It's just so addictive and so satisfying.
Amazing. Yeah, really interesting. I should have said right at the start, by the way, if anybody watching the live does have any questions for Samantha at any point in this, if you actually just comment on LinkedIn, on this LinkedIn live, then we can bring the questions up live and ask Samantha, would you say anything relating to AI, specifically content workflows, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, try anything and I'll do my best to answer.
Yeah, cool. This podcast is brought to you by Blend. We're a B2B website and demand generation agency. We work with ambitious businesses just like yours to create and execute effective demand generation strategies that drive pipeline for your business. We also recognize that your website is the most important asset you have in marketing. So we specialize in building scalable websites on HubSpot that convert the demand that you've created. If you want to find out more about our services and see real results that we've generated for businesses, visit blendb2b.com. I think a good place to start before we do get into the live demos and stuff is actually just outlining the opportunity that exists for marketers right now when it comes to these content workflows. It feels like a unique moment right now in time where like we really as marketers need to start evolving into a lot of this workflow generated repurposed content kind of thing if we actually want to make the most of what we're doing and keep up with the cadence around us.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the days when, you could start a content website, affiliate marketing and all of that and make money that way, I think that's really fading out because of how Google's evolving and how AI is coming into search, coming at it from an SEO standpoint. I feel that in 2025 and beyond, it's going to be more about building that kind of brand universe for your business, which means being present on multiple different channels. Not just SEO, maybe not just social, but covering all of that. And when I say this, you might be thinking, well, how do I, my team, small team perhaps, find time to create all those different pieces of content? But this is where AI can really come into its own and step in and fix that for you. And by saying that, I don't just mean churning out the really basic stuff with basic crappy prompts. I mean a system that really takes the time and effort to tailor those prompts for the business, for the target audience, for the pain points. There's so much that needs to go into an effective prompt in content. And I feel that a lot of the stuff we see online that we don't like, that we say, AI is rubbish, is coming from bad prompting and from a lack of enough human in the loop. And having that there is so important. So yeah, I think we're moving towards this like a brand universe type of thing. And AI is going to be really essential in making it possible for small teams and for solo founders even to keep up that pace of content.
Yeah, for sure. Like if you could just summarize, the big opportunity that content teams have right now when it comes to all of this stuff, what would you say it is?
How would I summarize it?
Yeah, the big opportunity that's there right now.
I think content repurposing, start with your long form stuff. So like your YouTube, your blog, or let's say white papers, reports, if your company has those, and use those as the starting point with an AI system to chop up and get ideas for your social media posts.
Yeah, I think that's where we're seeing the value as well, to be honest. Like we're not at the stage yet where we've got workflows in the sense, that you're going to show us today. But when you just see the power of prompting correctly, uploading knowledge, like instructions that are revolved around your brand and everything like that, like you really start to see the power that AI can have in just increasing the cadence and quality of output for like almost every single business. It is incredible right now.
It's so important. And now, the models are improving vastly. I first started using them in early 2023 with ChatGPT and Claude. I think it was Claude 2.1 at that point. And they were reasonable then. I always favored Claude for a long time, for maybe most of the last 2 years, for writing tasks, because I always felt that its default mode was more natural and less like AI style than ChatGPT. But that they're getting really, really advanced now, and there's so much reasoning power in there as well. So there's not really an excuse now for churning out the crappy stuff. It's like learn how to prompt, get your knowledge base set up, make sure humans put expertise at the beginning and review at the end, and then the quality is going to go up so much.
Yeah. So like for teams who have content workflows in place right now, but when I say workflows, I'm talking like the old school handcrafted content that they're creating. Where is the right place to start when it comes to mapping out what you can do with AI? Because I think a lot of teams are overwhelmed right now by the amount of tools available that's there. You've got, your like layer one AI tools like your ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever it may be. Then you've got all of these other specialist tools, these workflows like N8N, Make.com, Zapier that can connect all of these things up. It's just like overwhelmed with tools right now and possibilities as well. Where do you often advise people start when it comes to connecting things, workflows up, those kind of things?
Yeah, well, a lot of the things you just mentioned are doing similar tasks, right? So when it comes to Zapier, N8N, and Make, they're all doing similar things. My preference at the moment is Make, because I find the interface is really user friendly. You can master it quite quickly. N8N seems quite a lot more complex. It's something I'm gradually learning, but I think for people who are beginners to this, as I was not long ago, Make is probably quicker to get up and running with. Zapier, I never really got into. I've known about it for years and never really clicked with me. So Make.com is my kind of go-to at the moment. But that aside, you're going to need one of those two. These are the glue that sticks all the different things together, right? So one of those is essential. But other than that, I would say, like sit down and sort of think about how the team puts together what a piece of content, like what are the steps in this process that you normally have, with humans, and draw those out even with a pencil and paper, and then see how a tool like Make.com can pull together several bits of software and make that more automated. It takes a bit of practice to get the hang of, but once you do, you realize that these things can be done in minutes. You can literally like go into your WordPress site, grab the latest published post, and have it in 6 different pieces of social content in like a minute with the right workflows. So yeah, I think like don't get overwhelmed by the different kinds of tools. A lot of them just do the same thing. I would say start with Make.com. I think it makes the most sense. And in terms of AI models, it really depends what you want to achieve. If your like business is all about written content, then my pick would still probably be Claude, because I've always found it better from an ex-journalist perspective. I used to be one a long time ago. But ChatGPT, if that's what you're used to, again, it can work. Some of the more advanced models now are getting better and better at producing written content.
Yeah, I can't remember where I heard this, but I think it's true. So I'm going to say it anyway. I think Claude was trained on like publications and journalistic content for its large language model, whereas ChatGPT's content was trained on more generalistic content, which is why the writing style for Claude is often a lot more natural and what we would consider more like marketing friendly copy compared to ChatGPT, which is very, general, like robotic style, which just doesn't really flow quite well.
I've heard that too. Maybe you told me. I can't. It might have been you who told me that actually. But yeah, it's an important distinction.
I'm just dishing out this false information. So if anyone could like verify that claim, maybe I should do it myself.
Yeah,
it sounds right, doesn't it? It sounds about right.
It makes sense to me. I mean, that would be how I would describe it. That's they trained it on something different. Like Claude is trained on something different. It's way more academic and more journalistic. I've done examples of content in both of those categories with it, and I've been really happy with the results. So yeah, could well be.
There you go. One thing that we're actually looking at internally is like an AI matrix. So we're taking different tasks across the business and almost mapping them out in terms of like effort and reward. Ultimately, that's kind of the way that we're thinking about how we prioritize what to do with AI, because, you know, like we say,
Mm.
the opportunity there is just ridiculous, and it is so overwhelming when you immerse yourself
Yeah.
in AI tools and AI capability. You get lost in it and you don't really know where to start. So mapping this out somehow, like you say, with a pen and paper to map out a process if you absolutely
Yeah.
have to, or,
Mhm.
you know, do some more
Mind map.
complex matrix style thing where you can
Mm.
actually map out, yeah, the reward and the effort of something, I think is a good shout.
I think so, yeah. In my previous business, you know, what helped me find the lowest hanging fruit was really like in terms of things that generate revenue and blockers that are stopping the revenue from being generated. So, for example, I got most of the leads from that business from SEO, and things were ranking on the front page of Google, and a lot of inquiries were coming in for people who wanted relocation information, and there were valuable leads in there. But because everything was manual, it was difficult for me and my business partner to reply to them all in time. You know, just the two of us, and we were missing out on really like significant revenue from that. So that was really the obvious low hanging fruit that had to be fixed, and we had to set up some very simple automation just to filter these leads and reply to them, you know, quickly in minutes rather than 24 to 48 hours, because we're slow. We were slow, and that helped a
Yeah.
lot. So that was an obvious one. But I guess not every business is going to have maybe not no brainer, you know, opportunities like that. But yeah, I think it's a good way to look at it. What takes the most time and what costs you the most money? Go for those first.
Yeah, and I think what you've just said there is quite an interesting approach, because you started with one thing that was directly and clearly impacting revenue. Like, and we speak about that a
Yeah.
lot on this podcast in terms of starting with the things closest to revenue first and working your way back. And if you can do that with
Mm.
AI too, then you'll be in a really good place to actually have more direct ROI as soon as possible on those implementations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that, you know, content isn't always necessarily directly tied to revenue, but for example, like if a business had bottom of the funnel content, right, then I suppose one thing to automate might be like, how good is it at converting the customers, right? Is it is this blog post optimized for conversions properly? And you know, you can build an automation that would create content with the right conversion points already built in, for example,
Yeah.
which would then boost your conversion rate. Just off the top of my head, that's one that could work well for B2B.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Okay, cool. I have noticed a couple of comments come in, but I think if we save those to the end, because I really want to get into the juicy part of this, which is showing people,
The
you know,
juicy
what you've
part,
been
yeah.
working on. That's what
Yeah,
I'm calling it anyway. So
I
if
like
you're
it.
good, I'll share the screen now and kind of
Yeah.
hand over to you, Samantha, to show us how it's done by an expert.
Yeah, I'm good. Please go ahead and share. I think it's still my YouTube, so yeah, nothing weird on there.
Cool. There you go.
Cool. Okay. So I mentioned, like, I think just before that, you know, starting with long form content is a really good way to use AI to get your social media posts as well, because the long form, obviously it's easier and it makes more sense because there's so much content packed into that, rather than doing it the other way around, which would still be doable, but it would be less of a logical move. So I built this automation that takes a YouTube video from my very small YouTube channel. I've only got like 100 and something
For
subscribers.
now. For now.
But for now, I haven't worked on this for a long time, and it's not even updated for AI automation yet. But you know, it's coming. But this automation, basically, whenever a new YouTube video is published, I think the last one was like 6 months ago, it takes that video and it pulls it into the flow. It grabs a transcript of it and it pumps that transcript into a bunch of different Claude prompts that are set up to optimize that for posts that perform well on different kinds of social media. So I've got LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, stroke Threads, stroke Blue Sky. You can use, I think, similar formats pretty much for all three of those. And finally, an email newsletter. And so these are all slightly different formats because, you know, you can't just use the same generic thing on all of those platforms because the algorithms are demanding different things from the content. And then it puts all of these posts into an Airtable database ready for me to review and to decide whether I want to, copy paste them directly as they are or make tweaks. And there's also an option to auto post them, but I don't like doing that for a couple of reasons. And one is I like to have control over the output because, you can never be totally sure that it's going to be perfect first time. There's usually always a couple of tweaks that I want to make. So I like to have that human in the loop step at the end. And also some platforms, LinkedIn in particular, can get quite sensitive about automations being run on their platform. So I really value my LinkedIn account. I've put a lot of effort into it over the last couple of years, and so I would hate to be banned for automating, for auto posting or something like that. So that's basically the gist of it. So I'm going to switch over to make.com now, and Dan, tell me if can this be seen?
Yeah, we can see that.
Perfect. Okay. So this is make.com, and as you can see, it's a substitute for N8N or Zapier. But I like it because the interface is so friendly, and it's just something so nice about looking at these different colored bubbles. Perhaps that's all it boils down to for me. Just love the way it looks, but it's quite user friendly as well. So this is what I call the content reactor. It basically reacts to a piece of long form content, and it turns it into these different posts. So I'm going to just run you through how this works. So in the wild, I would have this set up here, this YouTube module at the beginning. I would have it set up to run on, whenever a new post is published, which you can do. What it basically does is it watches the videos in a channel, which you can see here, watch videos in a channel. And I've got it set up on my channel. And then if I were to publish a new one and this was running, it's not on at the moment, but if this was running, it would then automatically grab that in the background and it would run it through all of these steps, and it would pop out into this Airtable here, which has different tabs for LinkedIn, Facebook, email, Twitter, and YouTube. We're not doing YouTube at the moment. I'm going to grab just an old YouTube video from my channel and show you how this works. So gives you the option to choose where to start. And this is going to let me manually pick a video from my channel. So this is really what I've got. I'm going to go for, is SEO finally dead? This is a video I did a while ago, and I'm sure you've seen this question being asked a lot all the time on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So let's grab that one. So then all we need to do is click run, and this will go through all of the steps pop out at the end. So I'm just going to run it before explaining the steps in more detail, and you'll see what happens. So when these little ones pop up, it means that has successfully completed. It's basically coming from the YouTube channel. It's going into this thing called Dumpling AI, which grabs the transcript, and the AI models need to have that transcript text to work with. So it's really important to have a step that grabs that. Then the first one is for LinkedIn. So this Claude module basically operates on the transcript from a LinkedIn perspective and structures it for LinkedIn. And when it's finished, I'll dive in and show you what the prompt actually looks like. But that one's completed, and that one has been spat out into the Airtable, ready to be reviewed. It's just finished the email newsletter version here, and it's now working on the Facebook post, which is just finished. And the final one is Twitter. And you can see that Twitter's set up a little bit different from the others. The reason for that is because there are two main different kinds of posts on Twitter. Full confession, I don't actually use Twitter anymore for reasons, but I think it's still important to include because people do. And, you can also adapt this for Threads and for Blue Sky as well. So there are two kinds of tweets, right? A basic tweet, which is just one tweet. And a thread, which is like a whole bunch of linked tweets. So what this ChatGPT module does is analyzes the original idea from the YouTube, and it decides whether it's a better fit for a single tweet or a Twitter thread, and then it routes it accordingly through here or through here. And most of the time, because the YouTube videos are long form and they're usually like how to do something, 98% of the time in this one, in mine, it's suitable for a thread, and that's what it creates. And that gets popped into Airtable. And finally, just a little ping on Slack to let me know that these posts are ready to review. And that's just an optional step. I could also have it email me or Telegram me or whatever made the most sense for my workflow. So let's take a look at what it's output. Just for reference, this is the video. So this is me talking about, it's actually even a year out of date. Is SEO finally dead? But it's basically 5 ways that I'm adapting in the case SEO might finally be dead. So let's take a look at what it gave us. So LinkedIn, here is the first one. So if we go into post text, this is the new one. You can see it's today's date. Open up this, and we can see it's got a hook with the brackets. It's quite, something that's quite well used on LinkedIn. And you can see that, it's quite well structured for LinkedIn, right? Like this is a common format that I would use and lots of people use. And it ends with a nice question to trigger engagement. So, I think that's quite a decent post. I would probably, not change it too much. I like that. Might put in British English, maybe. Don't know why it's in the US English.
But I assume you can add that to the prompt as well,
Yeah,
like,
you can. I just haven't bothered to do so. Yeah, you can. I went through a weird phase of writing everything in US English for a while. So it's probably just left over from that, global audience and all that.
Yeah.
So that's the LinkedIn one. So, and it's also got a tag here for the source because I've also got 2 other versions of this workflow that start with a blog post or start with an idea that's been dictated, just from a voice note. So and they all go into the same bunch of prompts. So let's take a look at the Facebook one. And here you can see a different style for Facebook. It's a bit more clickbaity. It's Google trying to kill your traffic and the SEO apocalypse, all this stuff that is probably better suited for Facebook rather than LinkedIn. Emojis, a few emojis thrown in there. Yeah, I don't really use Facebook that much for this myself. But I think, this will be nice because again, it gets people to start commenting. And I think, for a brand's Facebook page, this could be quite a nice thing to post. So yeah, I think it's decent. And again, tags it for its source. If we jump into email newsletter, now you can imagine this is going to be quite different from shorter social posts. So let's take a look. It gives you a subject line here. Right here, I would probably set it to not do title case because I find there's something quite like cheesy about title case in the subject line of an email. Do you find that too, Dan?
Yeah, I absolutely do.
What is it about that? Yeah.
I think it just looks marketing. Like it
looks
like
marketing. It looks like marketing. That's it, isn't it? That's it. So yeah, I can easily tell it not to do that. And normally I would fix that.
Yeah, for sure. But you can do all of that within the prompt, right? Which I'm sure you'll show us. But
totally, I will.
Yeah.
I will indeed. So this one is more like a story, right? So there I was yesterday staring at my analytics with this "what the heck just happened" expression on my face. So again, it's like slightly embellishing things here, but I think this is kind of cool. It's maybe a little bit cheesy. I don't know. It depends, but you can easily fix these prompts to by giving them examples of newsletters that you like or your own previously manually written newsletters. There's lots of ways to do it, but I think it's a decent start. And you can see it's quite extended as an email newsletter would be. And you see it's got like a thing here about your strategy call slots and a call to action here. So and another PS here. So it's very much geared towards generating leads, rather than just an email newsletter for the sake of it. And then the final one here is the Twitter post. And you can see it's chosen a thread for this one because it's clearly quite a long form topic with lots of different moving pieces. So let's see how that looks. So what I would do is I would take out the word topic and put this as the first tweet. I haven't, it's been so long since I've used Twitter, but I believe it starts with a hook like that, right? That would be the first tweet with a little thread thing here. And then you chain it all together into a thread like this. So, I think that's kind of cool. It's given me, not quite sure where this came from actually. How to wake up at 5 a.m. without hating your life. That's a bit odd.
Maybe need to go back to that one, but
yeah, I'm not sure about where that one came from. Typical Twitter, you know?
I mean, yeah, for B2Bs
Thanks, Twitter.
anyway, like it's primarily going to be LinkedIn and
Yeah.
newsletter. Like that is probably about it, seeing as you're
Yeah.
starting with YouTube.
I think so, yeah. I just like put it in for completeness sake, you know?
Yeah.
And I used to do this thing of turning a blog post into a YouTube script, but I figured out after a while that this content reactor works better when the long form thing, whatever it is the starting point. So I decided just to, you know, use YouTube or blog as an interchangeable type of starting point. So are there any questions on that? I'm going to dive back in and show you some of the prompts that we use.
I think just carry on, keep going.
All right, cool. So what does a prompt look like? Let's jump into the LinkedIn one and see. You know, these are bits and pieces I've gathered over time. You know, some of them have come from other examples and they've been patched together, but it's kind of always an improving thing that I'm working on improving. But anyway, so context is, you know, this is set up for me. So it's service business owners with their goal, their challenge, all things to do with AI automation here. So it knows me. And if I were to set this up for a client, of course, this would be tailored to exactly, you know, their context here. And then the task is to take this transcript and transform it into, you know, an engaging LinkedIn post. And it gives that, then you can slot in the transcript right here. And what I love so much about Make is that it lets you take this modular approach where you can just go to the previous modules here that we've already been through. And you can take this part here, which is the transcript, and it's captured in this transcript variable, and you just plop it into the prompt here. So it has that to work with. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, on that point, because I
Yeah.
suppose want to dumb this down a little bit as well for audio listeners too, who might not be looking at this, and just, you know, try and explain it. So dumpling AI here is the next step along from the trigger, which is a new YouTube video. And I suppose so dumpling AI is basically taking a video and transcribing it.
Exactly. This, just to explain what this purple one is, this is this isolates the URL. Yeah. So basically dumpling needs to have the URL of the YouTube video and only the URL in order to function. So what I've done is I've just like kind of captured that URL from the first module, which is the YouTube one, and stored it in a variable that can then be pumped into dumpling. So dumpling is just a tool that does it has a bunch of different functions, but one of them is to get the YouTube transcript. So I think it is possible to do this in ChatGPT. You might be able to get a transcript in ChatGPT as well. But I know that dumpling just works really well. So that's why I chose to use it here.
Cool. And then dumpling is basically sending this to Claude, but with this extended prompt where you're basically saying, you know, Claude, have a look at this transcript. Here's the task to, you know, complete off the back of it.
Exactly. So if you were using Claude the normal way, you know, through the front end, you would get the transcript in a PDF and you'd upload the PDF to Claude or to ChatGPT, right? That's how most people would do it. This is like the equivalent of that, but in a workflow.
Got you. Okay.
All right, cool. So I've also given it some writing style examples. 3 of my previous LinkedIn posts that performed well, and I ask it to analyze them to match my writing style. And, you know, post 1, the whole text of the post, and 2 and 3. So I think that's it. Okay, now I give it some things about structure. So yeah, so I picked a few hook frameworks, you know, that I picked up on LinkedIn. I think maybe Matt Barker might be responsible for these. And I tell it to choose which hook is the most appropriate for the topic, and some tips on the body content and stuff here to try and get it to stop using jargon and you know, all this tacky AI type stuff. And again, you can put anything you want in here, of course. And output format, just provide a LinkedIn post and don't give like a waffle-filled explanation at the beginning like it tends to do. So that keeps the Airtable nice and clean. So yeah, that's the LinkedIn prompt. Any questions on that?
So you're basically bringing the Claude chat window, or at least the initial prompt, just into make.com here.
Yeah, I could use so that the thing is when you're using Claude through the front end, you've got a lot more flexibility to go back and forth with it. It's more like a conversation, right? But it needs to be complete from the get-go to make the workflow, because the workflow you can't chat with the workflow. Okay, you can edit the prompt, but you have to run the whole thing again.
Yeah.
So it has to be a big prompt.
Would it be beneficial to almost, take this prompt into the normal chat window and finesse it until you can bring it back into the workflow, and then, you've got a more finalized thing there?
Yeah, you could do that. I probably do have prompts in workflows that an AI has helped me to create in the first place. I mean, sometimes I get the AI to generate the whole prompt. It just depends on. I was quite precise about this one because it was I wanted to get the LinkedIn posts really as close to complete as I could, and try and get them really high quality from the beginning. And I wasn't sure if I sort of trusted the AI to bring in all the many things that I wanted to have in there, but they're getting better and better. So you could do that as well. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Carry on.
No worries. No worries. So the others are similar, I believe. Let's just have a quick look at what in this one for the email newsletter. Yeah. This time I gave it a role. I don't know if that makes a huge difference. I know the LinkedIn one didn't have a role, but it still seemed to work pretty well. But anyway, it's nice to include that. It does help. Again, it's the same thing. So the transcript is coming from Dumpling, and I've told it some things about my current offer, the call to action, and instructing it that every email should mention the offer in a subtle way. And I think it does that quite nicely because Claude is very good at this more subtle and nuanced kind of responses, which I think is great. So I think these came from Louisa Joe, who's a creator who I follow. I follow her emails, and I thought that I liked her style a lot. So I plugged these in and use them as examples for my own. So you can do that. If you have a creator whose emails that you think are great, you can just plug 2 or 3 examples into here and ask Claude to follow that kind of style and sort of merge it with your own style and your own goals and context. And it works really well, I think. So thanks, Louisa. This is all just text from her emails, blah, 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 blah. Let's see what's at the end.
Is there a limit to that? Because that is a really long prompt, isn't it?
I know, it is. Well, I can set the amount of tokens here, the max tokens, because tokens is right. Like it's charging you for tokens. It's not that expensive. It's just a few cents. But Claude is one of the more expensive models. So yeah, maybe I don't need 4 examples. Actually, 2 could be enough. 4
what is
it?
Just to pull that back a bit. So what is a token in the workflow, sense? What we're looking at here. What is a token?
I believe it's either a white space or a letter or a symbol. Anything here, like I feel light. It's going to be, I know then the space is a token. The word feel is a token. So there's going to be a lot in there, and that's why this is all quite crammed together in an attempt to save tokens. But also I don't like it when it's so crammed because it's hard to actually read this thing. But also the token use is like the transcript, whatever the video transcript is. I believe that also counts as tokens as well, because Claude has to read all of that transcript as well. So yeah, you would need, like, if you put 1,000 tokens in here as the limit before stopping, that would probably not be enough to give you a complete output.
So every a question time of is running this workflow, you have to pay per token, basically. Like Claude will charge you for every kind of like API hit.
So I have got so I've got through the Anthropic console, I've got like, I don't know, $10 in tokens or something, and it lasts for quite a long time actually. So it's not hugely expensive, just for you know, one person or a small team or something like that. It's not really, it's a negligible amount. But there are cheaper models. I think Google Gemini is a lot cheaper, and people say it's almost as good as Claude, if not better. So I'm quite keen to give that a try, but again, haven't got around to it yet.
Cool. Okay.
But yeah, probably too many examples there. But like I said, at least 2 is probably good to give it something to work with. So that's that one. Facebook, I think I might have generated this one from ChatGPT because I don't use Facebook that much for business, and I wanted it to give me the prompt so I didn't have to create it. And I think it does okay. You know, it focuses on emotion and storytelling, and you know, grabs attention with a question or a bold statement, and you know, that's, I guess, quite suited to Facebook. And here I gave it some examples again. Yeah, just one example this time. Yeah. And the Twitter one, again, it was the same stuff with an example, and the same thing for the other one. I think I also got ChatGPT to generate these too. So yeah. So if you're not really an expert on a platform, it's still okay just to ask an AI to help you generate the prompt itself. I think it works quite decently well.
Yeah. Cool.
And that's that. Yeah. So just a quick word on how I could adapt these. So it's very easy. Like basically all of this lot from this routing point all the way through to here to Slack would all stay the same pretty much, right? And what I would do is I would just swap out these 3 here, and I would put, for example, a WordPress module in here, which would then, instead of grabbing a new YouTube video, it would grab a new blog post that had just been published on WordPress, and it would run it through the same flow and perform these things on the blog post instead of the transcript. And I've actually got that one, but it's so similar. Just imagine that Dumpling and the purple one have gone, and WordPress is there instead. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one thing as well that is really good with this workflow. So like, obviously we're starting with the YouTube video, we're flowing through, getting the transcript, and then pushing that into different repurposed formats. But I think the Airtable step is a really clever one to just kind of make sure that the human, you know, touch is still going over the top of all of this content that's being created. Because whilst the output is good, and you know, you're using prompts there with thousands of characters, but we still need to make sure that, you know, in terms of what our brands look like and how we are perceived is consistent, and that we're happy with that output. So storing all of the content in an Airtable, I think, is quite clever. And I'm assuming that the Airtable can be replaced with anything else, like even as simple as a Google Sheet.
Oh yeah, so I was actually using Google Sheets for the first version of this, and it's, you know, it's just a question of, well, what it would look like in Make. You just go in and you find Google Sheets, and you know, add a row here and link it up to, I've got a connection going already. So then I would just delete the Airtable and use that instead. But I've grown to like Airtable more and more because it has some really powerful features. It's also easier to use with clients because with Google, you know, you get into that whole 2-factor authentication stuff, and it's really quite hard to access somebody else's Google account because they always force you to have to pin numbers to their phone and all that. And especially if you're on a different time zone, it can be an absolute nightmare. So Airtable is just more user-friendly, and it has some great features like these interfaces, which I've been trying to start building out for this particular workflow. I haven't finished yet, but it's a really nice way of kind of presenting that to your client so that they don't have to really use the back end. They can just use this nice looking front end type of setup, and I really love that. It just looks so much more professional than a Google Sheet. But sure, that's an easy way to do it.
Yeah. So obviously you've spent quite a lot of time using make.com, figuring out these workflows. Were there any things that you stumbled across that were really tricky, or just like simple mistakes that you figured out along the way that would have made your life a whole lot easier if you knew them now, that you could share?
You mean specific to make.com or kind of in
Not
general?
necessarily. I mean, that's, just what we were looking at now. I suppose when it comes to the whole workflow and content repurposing nature of that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think what took me a while to get used to was the whole different way of interacting with the AI tools, right? So, I'd spent the last couple of years, like all of us do, chatting back and forth with them in their window.
Yeah.
And they're very forgiving because if you don't like the output, you just tell it what you don't like and it fixes it for you, right? And you can just keep going on and on and on and on and on with this as long as you like. But here, yeah, like I already said, you need to get this prompt right first time, really, because you have to, every time you run the workflow, you can't just keep chatting back and forth with it. So that was probably one of the biggest adjustments, having to really learn prompt engineering much better than I had done
Mhm.
before, and bringing in stuff like the role, the context, the task, the instructions, the examples, and actually, you know, defining those things in the prompt, which I never really did before when I was just talking with my
Yeah.
AI tools, like what we all do. So that was, yeah, I think the biggest adjustment. In other senses, things like getting used to how API keys work, and if you have access to the API key, you can basically loop in any kind of software into these workflows. And I'm not really a coder. I've tried learning to code in the past many years ago, and it never really stuck with me. It was never something I enjoyed. But when you start playing with APIs from different things, you do have to know a little bit of code sometimes, like at least know what JSON objects look like and how to interact with those. Maybe a little bit of Python scripting
Yeah.
once in a while. But it's nothing too terrifying. And with make.com, you can mostly stay away from that. So, I think, yeah, for anyone who's doing this, learning how APIs work and learning how to properly structure prompts, these are two skills that will really help you a lot.
Well, that's actually probably a good time to jump into a couple of these questions, because Gemma Smith asked, do you have any resources for learning better prompt engineering? It's a good question. I would love to know that as
Hmm.
well, actually.
Yeah, that is a good question. Oh God, I've done it sort of like by osmosis from many, many YouTube channels.
Any
But
good ones you'd call out?
yeah, there are three for learning this. So the first one I ever learned from was this guy Liam Otley. He's a New Zealander, and he's got a big YouTube channel on AI automation. Um, and then my other favorite is Nick Sarive. I think his name is, well, it's a bit of a tricky name. I'll type it in the chat. Nick Sarive. He has an amazing YouTube channel and a community that I'm in, which is all about teaching automation and how to actually start an AI automation business. So, this is something I'd love to do myself later down the line, but he's way ahead of me. So I would still recommend that people check that out. And there's another channel by this Dutch entrepreneur called Ben, and it's called Ben AI. And I believe he has a video on prompt engineering. So between these three channels, you can definitely find stuff on how to do that, Gemma. So hopefully
Yeah,
that answers your
I
question.
also I'm a big fan of Marketing Against the Grain with Kip Bodnar and Kieran Flanagan.
I don't
Like
know
that
that one.
channel.
Ah,
So
okay.
it's
Mhm,
a HubSpot podcast network podcast.
mhm.
So Kip and Kieran, both HubSpotters. Kip CMO at HubSpot. Kieran is VP of
Oh, I think
marketing
I
and some
follow
other
Kieran.
stuff.
Kieran Flanagan, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Okay.
guy. And
Yeah. Okay, that's the guy. I follow him on LinkedIn. Yeah.
yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Like they share loads and loads now about AI and how to prompt and the power of using like knowledge and
Yeah.
storing that and things like that. So I would definitely check Marketing Against the Grain out. It's not specific to
Yeah.
prompt
That sounds good.
engineering, but there's a
Mhm.
lot of good
Yeah.
nuggets in there you can take away.
Yeah, yeah, because I don't think I looked at any one specific resource on prompt engineering. It was more like there were some videos that covered it as part of a wider how to make a workflow thing, and I just sort of picked it up from there. But yeah, I'm sure there are dedicated resources out there as well, probably from, perhaps from OpenAI themselves. I'm sure they have a
Yeah,
how to engineer a prompt guide, or for Anthropic or similar. But yeah, these are all good resources on YouTube.
yeah, for sure. If you were brand new to this, Where is this the workflow you would start with? Like that you'd recommend most B2B marketers to start with?
This one I've just showed you.
Yeah. So there's content repurposing.
Yeah.
What's it called? The
Well,
content reactor. I love
the
that name,
content
by the way.
reactor. I think it came
So
from an AI
cool.
tool. I even named my dog from an AI tool, but anyway, that's another
Brilliant.
story. I just asked it for a list of names, and I picked one that was really nice. It's Riley, if anyone's curious. So back to the question. God, would I recommend the content reactor as the first workflow? Do you mean like the first workflow for a team to build from scratch, or to like just to implement it in their business?
Just to implement in their business.
I don't think necessarily it should be the first. Like I said, going back to that whole thing about mapping out, the stuff that matters to your business, I think it's important to at least give some thought to that first. And you might find that, maybe content isn't the thing that needs the most attention in your business. But if you believe that content is the biggest bottleneck, for sure, then this will help a lot. It will definitely allow you to build a brand on multiple channels with minimal effort just from your long form content. And it will certainly increase the mileage that you can get from your long form content. Yeah. So if long form content and building a brand universe are important to your business, then yeah, for sure, this would be a good place to start.
Yeah, awesome. And I think that is in a lot of cases, or at least it probably should be for a lot of businesses, where to start, because I think the content playbook is changing now, and like has been changing for the last kind of 3 or 4 years in terms of this flow and where to start. So starting with that long form piece of video is so powerful because it enables everything else. Like, okay, you do have content, like video agents and audio agents coming out that might be able to replace you maybe someday on a podcast or on a video. But for now, I think you do need that human personality because that's what people are craving in that medium. But it then just allows you to recreate that, having a unique point of view, having, that perspective on the market that you can then repurpose across everything else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if I can just mention, there's one other input method for this same workflow that I think touches that what you just said directly, Dan. So it can be YouTube, it can be a blog post, but another one that I really like is just a voice note. So let's say you're a founder or you're a content leader and you have a great idea for something in your industry that has inspired you, right? You can just voice dictate it or voice note it into I think I use Slack in these workflows to capture it, but there can be other things as well. And even like a messy, garbled idea can be smoothed out by Claude and converted into a good post. And actually, for the last few months, most of my LinkedIn posts have come from that starting point. Just me out for a walk somewhere in Madeira by the seafront and, being hit by an idea and just voice dictating it into my phone, into Slack, and then it comes out the other end as a LinkedIn post or a maybe an email newsletter, but usually a LinkedIn post. So I think that's really nice because it really is a way to keep that human element in the mix from the beginning, but without being too much of a drain on people's time. They can just do it pretty easily on the go, and it's very user friendly just to voice dictate or record your thoughts and have the AI bring the structure to the whole thing.
Yeah, I love that because how many times do the best thoughts come to you when you're away from everything? You're away from the desk, you
Always.
don't have your laptop in front of you.
Yeah.
That's when the best ideas come and the best thoughts come, right? Like you say,
Almost always. Yeah.
yeah, and of
Why
course,
is that?
you dropped in there that you go for, walks along the beach and stuff. I go for walks in the rainy forest with the dog, and
Still
get
nice.
absolutely soaked. But I still get the ideas in those moments, at least. So yeah, voice
Yeah,
note
yeah.
is a good trigger and input for sure.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And I've also used it recently in a workflow I'm building for B2B blog content, more of like bottom of the funnel stuff. And this is SEO content, but it's also very important to me to have an expert, like subject matter experts, adding their take on the subject. So in a small nutshell, the workflow first of all takes a keyword and it pulls competitor stuff from the search engine results, and it builds an outline based on that. But it doesn't stop there, because that's very 2023 really, to just build an outline based on what your competitors are doing. You also have to inject that expertise in there. So the way the workflow does it is by prompting the user by Slack to actually record their thoughts on this topic into Slack. So I've got like a prompt set up in Slack with different questions that they can answer, and this captures their voice as a recording, and then it pulls it into the workflow, and it uses that to enrich this outline with the experts' thoughts and opinions, and ways that they would approach the problem. So that's something I'm still sort of fine-tuning, but I think it's powerful, and it could be very useful for B2B content, especially bottom of the funnel, where that subject matter expertise is so important.
Yeah, amazing. Cool. All right. Well, we're kind of coming to the end of this, and I think just before we wrap up, it would be great to hear from you, like where you think the next evolution of these tools is coming, is going to go. Because even when I look at that now, I know most marketers are not doing anything like that when it comes to actually having a intelligent workflow and automated flow like that with all of their content tools hooked up together. But what's even after that? Like what's coming? Because that is so cool, but so overwhelming.
Yeah, what's coming? Probably more overwhelming stuff. Well, I think video is going to be big, right? So we talked before about video avatars and all of that, and it's something I'm on the brink of experimenting with. I just need to get yet another tool subscription, but I'm thinking that it would be quite interesting to have a workflow where, let's say it started with an idea, and then cut that all up into your different social posts, but maybe you could also do some LinkedIn, some short form video content, but actually have it scripted by the AI, and have your avatar that you've already created in HeyGen or Synthesia read that script, deliver that script for you. I don't know if I would use this for, fully fledged YouTube videos, like, longer ones, but maybe for shorts or for LinkedIn content or something. It could be quite interesting, because I feel that they're becoming quite realistic now. So yeah, that's something I'm venturing into. I don't know if it's really a new frontier. I feel that quite a lot of others are doing it, but for me, it feels like a new frontier, because when you're making video content, it can be quite painful to get your script and to sit in front of the screen and the camera and deliver that script and get it wrong and have to do it again. All of this stuff that makes the video process quite painful, at least for some people. I find it quite cumbersome and quite painful. So anything to get past that would be very valuable. I think also, in a further away frontier, we might find that AI tools can just build these workflows themselves. I mean,
you tell it what you want and it builds it out.
Yeah, there's things like that already. So I use a software called Relevance AI, which builds AI agents. And you can actually just like describe the kind of AI agent that you want, and it builds it. And it's not really perfect yet. There's a lot of stuff you need to tweak, but it's going in that direction, I think. So yeah, who knows how long this area of work will be viable for. These things are changing so quickly.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'm really skeptical about the video capabilities of AI, like AI avatars, because I don't know, I could be totally wrong, but for me, when I'm watching, YouTube videos and video content, I'm almost there for the personality and like the connection with that person as well. And if it's an avatar, I'd like to think I could probably identify it's an avatar, maybe not with like the new kind of capabilities there. But I don't know, there's a disconnection there for me between what I'm seeking out of that medium and what I'm getting from an AI avatar. And I don't know how the market, like the different markets would respond to that. I don't know.
Yeah, it depends a lot, I think, on the realisticness of the avatar, right? Like I said, I would be reluctant to use it for anything long form, but for a 1-minute video, maybe that would be more appealing to me. But again, yeah, like it all depends on what the final output looks like, and that's something I haven't tested yet. But I feel like I'm going to test it pretty soon based on this conversation, because I want to see, is it possible to train it to be realistic So I don't know about you, but on YouTube, there's a lot of AI generated voices now and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, right? And I don't like it. I do find it off-putting. So it would depend a lot on how human and how much like me that thing that it was possible to make it be.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, if anybody, you know, wants to follow you, check out your stuff, see some more of these workflows, because I feel like we only just scratched the surface today, right? Where should they
Yeah,
go?
there's a lot more. Well, I should be starting tutorials on my YouTube channel, so that will happen at some point, and that's just Samantha North. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, Samantha North again, and I do post a lot of these on there. And you can also check out my personal website, samanthanorth.com, or my consultancy, which is at emigre.ai, if you want to talk about getting some help implementing any of these.
Yeah. And yeah, for sure, like even just follow Samantha on LinkedIn, like, because yeah, that's how I kind of stumbled across your profile and saw some of this really cool stuff actually being done.
Don't wait for my YouTube to get started again. It's on the list, but it's taking ages. I need an avatar. I need an avatar first.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously this was quite a visual episode. So if anybody is listening on the podcast after this goes live, it might be worth hopping over to YouTube to actually see the live demo of this, because it is really cool. And just like, I'm so glad we could bring a practical example of one of these AI workflows, because we hear a lot about it, but don't see a lot of it, you know, truly being used. And yeah, it was really cool. So it was so good to have you, Samantha. Like, really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, Dan. It's been fun. I really enjoyed demonstrating that. And yeah, I hope it was inspiring for some people, and come follow me on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Cool. All right, let's wrap it up there. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Demand Decoded, and we will catch you next time. Bye, everyone.